Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis, so good to be with you again.
Thank you, and good to be with you.
I wanted to start off talking about artificial intelligence, in part because you are participating in this announcement we're seeing on a Munich Accord on artificial intelligence. I'm calling it a Munich Compact, which is meant to combat fake AI-generated content around elections. Tell me a little bit about why you think it's so important to be participating in this.
Because I think this is a very, very worrisome development. Imagine you're running a campaign, and suddenly, on Friday before the election, it's blackout period. You can't say or do anything. A fake video or a fake audio of you appears, being bribed by someone. What do you do? How do you react? How do you respond? How quickly is this fake piece generated by AI going to go viral? So the fact that we're recognizing that this is actually something that can happen, that the tech companies have a responsibility to address it themselves, but that this does not replace the obligation, in our case of our European family, the European Union, to regulate this space, I think is an important acknowledgement by the tech companies. And I think the more we talk about it, the more we explain to people, even visualizing it, what AI can actually do and how convincing some of these deepfakes can be, the more people, I think, will also understand that if they see something which doesn't really seem to be very logical or very correct, they shouldn't really take the bait. So as much as it is important to have the technology to protect against these developments, it's also very important to educate the public that they need to be suspicious, and this is something which is actually going to happen. It could happen anywhere, and of course 2024 being a huge electoral year, I think it is important that this is part of the public discourse.
Here we are at the Munich Security Conference. You just saw that Navalny, the leading opposition member, former, is now not only in jail but has passed away, probably killed at the end of the day. And the Ukrainian fight is not going so well. It does not feel like NATO is getting stronger, if I'm being honest. It feels like NATO is under more threat. It feels like Ukraine is losing some momentum. And it feels like the most important military alliance in the world is losing some momentum. Am I wrong?
I think you're right to be skeptical, and we have every right to be concerned. Having said that, we at the European Council delivered the 50 billion that we had committed to Ukraine. And I do hope that the Congress does the same over the next weeks, understanding how important it is to provide Ukraine the necessary financial support to continue fighting for their independence. Again, every day we see what the Russian regime is capable of. And you mentioned the Navalny tragedy, and another wake-up call in terms of what we're actually dealing with. At the same time, this is also a wake-up call for Europe. I've been advocating for quite some time about what we call sort of European strategic autonomy, which is the necessity to spend more on European defense and do it in a smarter way and mobilize more funds. And I'm glad that also the Commission President came out with an interview today in the same line. And I think this is going to be an important topic also for the European elections. We do our own part as Greece. We spend more than 3% of our GDP on defense. But if you look at European procurement, it's a mess. European defense cooperation, we're clearly not where we want to be.
Troop readiness is not anywhere close to where it needs to be.
Innovation, focus, investing in innovation, not where we want to be. So we need to understand. But we've made some progress. We need to spend more on climate. We clearly need to spend more on defense. We already have a lot of debt. Actually, in Greece, the debt is coming down at a very fast pace, but that's not true for all countries. And we're faced with high interest rates. There is a colossal problem of how do we finance these investments. And this, of course, means, first of all, we need value for money, which means we need more effective procurement. We need to very much focus on the innovative technologies around warfare. This is not just going to be about the very expensive planes or the very expensive ships, and there's a lot to learn from the Ukrainian conflict. And maybe we will need more own resources at the European level dedicated to defense. So just some thoughts about how I see the agenda being developed from a European perspective.
Strong don't panic vibe.
Oh yes,
Point.
very much. I understand again the necessity to do lots of different things because we've laid out lots of priorities, but defense should be right on top of our priorities because of just taking a look at what's happening in Ukraine. We cannot afford the same risk. And we in Greece, in a sense, everyone in Europe has benefited, most countries in Europe, almost all countries in Europe, certainly Germany, for example, they benefited from a peace dividend after the collapse of the Soviet Union.
Absolutely.
We did not, because we had a big challenge. And we continue to have a big challenge because we have a neighbor who's been reasonably aggressive in the past, so we always needed to spend more. So if you look at Greece's fiscal position, look at those countries that spend 1% of their GDP versus us who spend 2 or 2.5%, even during the very difficult years. Do that cumulatively over 20 years. That's a lot of money that some countries saved and that we could not afford. Now we all need to step up.
Now, another change, very recently in your country, you spearheaded the legalization of same-sex marriage, a conservative government. How did it feel to put that on the agenda and get it done?
Well, 3 years ago, we came out with a very sort of disciplined LGBTQ strategy, which include various different sort of policy initiatives. But of course, what we call marriage equality, legalization of same-sex marriage, was the pinnacle of our strategy. And many people thought, are you taking a risk as a leader of a center-right party? And yes, I knew from the beginning that there are a lot of people also within my party that did not agree with this, but we went through extensive public consultation. We had a very vigorous debate in Greece. We had few extreme voices. We explained to people why this is important, why it is important, for example, for children who are born, who already exist to same-sex couples, that they have actually two parents, because if one parent dies, and there's no legal sort of framework, what happens to the kid. So we made these stories very, very real. And at the end of the day, human rights is about protecting, smaller groups. Otherwise, you have the tyranny of the majority. And for us, being able to get it through, more than 2/3 of my MPs voted for it. I'm happy about it. I was very happy when I saw the faces of the people who were in the gallery.
It looks festive in Greece, right?
Well, I think about also the faces of the people who were in the, in the galleries in Parliament. Some very moving, speeches by, homosexual MPs who described their stories and the pain of growing up in, for example, and, there's going to be a kid in rural Greece today that's struggling with, 15 years old, struggling with sexuality, and they're going to feel more comfortable. And this is important at the end of the day. And this is, one of the reasons why we did this, and the fact that it was a center-right government that did it. The previous government of the radical left did not dare to do it. But
you're like Nixon going to China on this one, right?
Yeah, in a sense maybe, but we worked very hard to explain to people what we're doing, and we fully respected those who disagreed, because I understand the arguments on the other side. I don't share them, but we never ever pointed the finger at those who disagreed. But I think the experience shows that once one crosses the Rubicon, then we're already at more than 50% approval, if I believe the polls. But then it becomes part of daily fabric, and people understand that at the end of the day, this is something that helps a few people, and it doesn't threaten anyone. So, and this is why it's so important.
Prime Minister Mitsotakis, as always, great to see you.
Thank you very much, Ian. Good to be with you.